How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined, as always, by my guy, Drew Johnson. Sorry, DJ. It's been one of those nights. You can find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dalton_Trigg. You can find my guy, DJ, at Coach Drew33. The Dallas Mavericks got completely wrecked in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Well, at least they did in the first half. And then, let's just set the table here for people listening who might not have watched all of the game, or, let's set the table here. So the Mavs came out. We talked about it on the preview pod. We were curious as to how the Mavs would come out having not been on this stage before. Everybody but Kyrie. It wasn't good. Everybody came out, Derek Lively, Luka started out a little hesitant, PJ Washington, that everybody just they were on edge. The nerves were getting to them. They were very visibly rattled. And what that translated into is the Celtics just avalanching the Mavs from three. And the Mavs were down by as many as 29 points in the first half. It was basically the game 1 or the game 4 against the Clippers, where the Mavs went down by 30 plus. And game 1 of that series was a blowout loss. Game 4, the Mavs came back and took the lead actually, and still lost. And it's too much to ask. The Mavs came back and they fought in that third quarter. They actually cut the 29-point deficit down to 8 points in the third quarter. And it looked like they had all the momentum, but then Derek Lively got in foul trouble. He had 5 fouls. He had to be taken out of the game, and then things just fell apart, from there going forward. So it didn't work out for the Mavs in game 1. They find themselves in a hole now. It was encouraging to see them fight back, because if you take away that crazy flurry that the Celtics had to start the game, it was pretty even throughout from that point on. So that's one thing for Jason Kidd to kind of preach to his guys going into game 2 on Sunday, is like, hey, if we come out and we don't look like a deer in the headlights again, if we learn from this previous experience, because let's just be honest. I mean, this is one thing we were concerned about, guys just not knowing what to expect. And, now they will know what to expect. And we saw the growth, I guess you'd say, of that as they went into that second half, and they just couldn't pull it off. The Celtics are too good. You can make a run, but I mean, you can't expect to come back from down 29 points to the Boston Celtics. That's not going to happen. So the key for game 2 is just don't go down by 29 points to start the game. And some of the big narratives going into this series was the former players playing their former teams, or the players playing their former teams. So Kyrie playing the Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis playing the Dallas Mavericks. And one game in, Kristaps Porzingis has the upper hand by far, because he lit the Mavs up in that first half. He had 18 points in the first half in 11 minutes. Mm-hmm. He was the reason the Celtics jumped out to the lead they did. I have to eat crow. I thought KP 100% was going to be rusty after missing. He's been out for 38 days. He hasn't played in an NBA game, and he came in and just went scorched earth. Like he was unbelievable. Now, given he cooled off in the second half, he only scored 2 points the rest of the game. But still, he was 8 of 13 overall, hit 2 of his 4 threes, had 3 blocks, plus 13 on the night. He was the difference in this game. He made all the difference for the Celtics. And we talked about it. If he looked completely healthy and didn't have much rust, it was gonna be a problem for the Mavericks, and it was in game one. So, and then on the other side of that, you have Kyrie, who I thought, even though we were kind of worried about how the other Mavs would react to this moment that they haven't been in before, we kind of thought Kyrie would be the one constant. He'd be the guy with the most poise. To come out there because he's been there before. This is his fourth NBA Finals. But the Celtics curse, I guess if you want to call it that, continues for Kyrie because he only had 12 points in 37 minutes. He shot 6 of 19 overall, 0 of 5 from 3, and several of those threes were wide open. There was a moment in the game where the Mavs could have potentially cut it, lower than 8. Like they could have gone on a run and gotten it to within 5 or maybe even 2 in back-to-back possessions if they had gotten some threes to fall, and Kyrie just could not hit one. So 0 of 5 from 3. He was a negative 19 in 37 minutes. It wasn't good. He was just completely outclassed in game one. So, and Luka, he did his thing. He had 30 points, 10 rebounds, only shot 12 of 26 overall, but that's not terrible. His 3-point shooting could have been better, 4 of 12. But, Luka was not the issue in this game. He did as good as he could have given what was thrown at him. And the shocking thing, and I promise I'm almost done with this rant, and then you can go on your rant. But the most shocking thing from game one is Luka having 1 assist. And the Mavs having let's see, how many assists did the Mavs have on the night? They had just 8 assists overall, I believe. Jesus. I think, or 9. 9 assists is what the Mavs had as a team in game one. And the Celtics, they had 23. So, that's not good. A lot of that had to do, and I look at the shooting percentages. Mavs shot just barely, or a little over 41% from the field. They shot 25.9% from 3, missed 7 free throws. They just didn't have it on this night, and they picked it up. They had some encouraging moments in that second half, especially in that third quarter. But like I said, it was just too much to overcome. So this is one that you flush pretty quickly. Like you address it. You address all the things that went wrong. You acknowledge that, you played the Celtics evenly after you got past that first quarter and a half. And then you move on to game 2 and you try to steal home court, because if you split on the road, that's really all you're looking for. And then you try to protect home court when you go back to Dallas for games 3 and 4. So that's my rant on game 1. I do have some other things I want to talk about here in a little bit, but I'm going to pass the baton to you, DJ. What are your thoughts on the Mavs falling flat in the first game?
Well, it was extremely obvious in the first quarter specifically. We did not do a good job on the defensive glass, specifically corralling these long rebounds that we talked about last night. And not doing that led to extra opportunities, and that was part of the problem. Absolutely was part of the problem. Next, and I actually want to talk about that assist stat. We only had 9 assists as a team. What that screams to me is the type of basketball that was being played. Generally speaking, whenever you have a low assist total, that means that people are playing more ISO ball than anything else. And I will admit, people were not making open shots that were set up for him perfectly, a la Kyrie Irving. But
PJ missed all 3 of his threes.
I mean, we just were not shooting the ball well today. But you look at that assist issue, that screams that we played exactly the way that we did not need to play. We were putting ourselves on islands, and we were trying to attack people that we had no business attacking in one-on-one matchups. And when the matchup doesn't favor you, why are you trying to get on an island with somebody? Okay, we don't need to be playing isolation ball. Why are we playing isolation ball? First of all, I didn't see – I mean, I saw a few, pick and roll sequences where we actually got what we wanted out of the deal. But the issue is they actually switched Tatum to playing defense on the post, and so now they're able to maneuver that a little bit better. So they're able to defend guard to post pick and rolls a little bit better. But still, you would like to see better actions ran, more actions ran. Even Jason Kidd said at halftime that they became way too ISO focused. And that just simply cannot happen. We need more efficient offensive opportunities. But let's see. Next, at times it just felt like we couldn't guard them. They looked really big. They looked like they were moving a little bit better than we were, specifically in that first half. They just had more energy than we did.
Well, look, let's be honest. I mean, we know the Celtics are an outstanding 3-point shooting team. They are.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what they do. They hit tons of threes. But even with that in mind, they were shooting the three out of their minds in that first half.
Yeah.
And it tapered off a little bit, toward the end of the second quarter and into the first half of the third quarter. And that's when the Mavs were able to make their run. So, I mean, the Celtics are going to hit threes. We know that. That was expected. And I specifically said it. They're going to have to change up their defense from how they wanted to play in the Western Conference Finals against the Timberwolves. You can't do that against the Celtics because they're going to hit threes. But some of the threes the Celtics were hitting, there's nothing the Mavs can do.
They were contested, and you're not going to see that happen consistently. You're just not. I don't care what people think about Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum isn't going to hit a bunch of threes with hands in his face like he did today. Kristaps Porzingis, Kristaps had the game of his life tonight. I doubt we see that again. I don't want to jinx anything. I'm just, speaking to the mean here.
And if we do see it again, congrats to the Celtics, because that would be incredible for them.
Well, that means that they completely exercised all of Kristaps' demons, and I really hate that we couldn't get this version of Kristaps in Dallas. It's really just too bad, but it is what it is. Another thing that I want to address that I guess I was incorrect about was us sticking PJ Washington on Jaylen Brown and thinking it was a good idea for PJ Washington just to single guard Jaylen Brown. Apparently, this is not a good idea. I thought he could physically keep up with him. I thought he even might have a physical advantage. I was wrong. He does not. We need to change up the way that we guard Jaylen Brown, and I think, personally, that we need to take away his right hand, because the guy's notorious for not being able to go left whatsoever. And yet, we continuously let him get to his right over and over and over. And he dunked on us like 4 times tonight. I think. Wasn't it like 4 times?
It felt like it. I mean, we knew he's a problem.
He's a huge problem when you let him get to his right. I think you have to, there was a type of defense we were playing against Minnesota where, and we kind of played this on Harden. It didn't work on Harden, where we would take away a hand and force him into straight line drives right into either Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively. Now, the issue with this is Daniel Gafford / Derek Lively, or whoever the hell you have back there, is also responsible for a post player that can shoot the three. So they have to be cheated over already to where I'm sure is the corner, because that's where Al Horford likes to set up shop. KP's more of a top of the key perimeter guy, so that might be a little bit easier to recover on than the corner. But we can't just straight up guard Jaylen Brown. We have to have help behind us, and we have to take something away from him, I think.
Well, and look, I personally, and you may disagree with this, I personally thought Luka did a pretty decent job moving his feet and, guessing which direction Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were going on some of those ISO attempts that he was on them. The thing is, he's got to stick with it, because he got in front of Brown on several occasions, but then Brown is just relentless. Like Luka thought, okay, well, I walled him off, and Brown's going to switch directions and go the other way, and then Brown was just like, nah, I'm just going to keep plowing through, and he just went right by him. So if Luka
because he can't go the other way,
yeah,
it's because he can't go the other way. He can't go left.
yeah,
That's
so,
well documented.
yeah. So if you're Luka, it's like just keep sliding over that way, and maybe you have a little bit better time keeping him from getting all the way to the rim. But it was bad. We've seen it before in the past. We knew it coming into this series that Jaylen Brown was going to be a major problem. He always is for the Mavs. But I mean, overall, after we got past that avalanche first half, I thought the Mavs did okay. I mean, PJ Washington, I kind of thought he found something against Derek White. On the offensive end, it seemed like he was kind of taking Derek White to the rim at will, backing him down and everything. That was encouraging to see. PJ had 8 rebounds on the night too, with 14 points. Again, you'd like to see PJ hit some threes. He's had some games like this in the playoffs where he's had some offers. He was 0 for 3 in this one, but he always bounces back. So I mean, I'm not worried about PJ. He's what we like to call a shame haver. He shows up to the moment more times than not. I'm not worried about him. Derrick Jones Jr., he started out the night by nailing a 3, and I thought, okay, well, this is going to be good. He ended up with 5 points on 2 of 7 shooting from the floor, and he was a negative 12 on the night in 29 minutes. Gafford, he was, I guess, kid decided he was pretty much unplayable for most of the game because he only ended up playing 14 minutes. He had 8 points, 3 rebounds, and was 3 of 3 overall. No turnovers. So overall, I mean, I'm looking at the box score, and it's like, yeah, the Mavs lost, but they could shoot better from 3. Kyrie Irving had to have a catastrophic game, for this to be if Kyrie even has a decent game, this is a single digit affair at the least. So I don't know, man. I'm cautiously optimistic for the Mavs going into game 2. One, because I believe in the law of averages. I just do not believe Luka and Kyrie are going to shoot as bad from 3 as they did in this game. 2, like you said, we both don't expect Kristaps Porzingis to do the same thing that he did in the first half of game 1, and he fizzled out in the second half of game 2, and now he's got to deal with, after playing a full game or 20 minutes in that game, you got to see how that calf reacts to it over the next few days of just sitting. So we'll see how that goes into game 2, but I don't expect him to do that. And 3, the Mavs are undefeated following a loss this postseason. So this is, that's kind of part of this team's DNA. They take their licks, they go back, they watch film, they adjust some things here and there, what they could do better. And they have a little bit, they have a slight bit more experience now than they did, 24 hours ago. Because Derek Lively, he has a game under his belt now. He hopefully doesn't look like a deer in the headlights in game 2 to start it. He's been a plus-minus darling this entire postseason, and he was a negative 15 in 18 minutes, which was crazy.
Wow.
And 5 fouls were brutal. And look, that's another thing too. I'm not going to come out here and say officiating was not the deciding factor in this game. I don't want to go into saying this point and people listen to it and say, "Oh, he's bitching about the refs." And that's why no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying part of the reason the Celtics jumped out to that 29-point lead, there were 2 reasons for it. One, they were just nailing tons of threes. Another reason for it is because the whistle was inconsistent. The Mavs were not getting foul calls on one end, which resulted in turnovers, which led to easy Celtics points on the other end. And it's just a fact that contributed to that ballooned lead. So I thought that played a little bit of a factor. But again, that's not why the Mavs lost. The Mavs could have still played much better. You can't give up 37 points in a first quarter. Like that's awful. You look past that first quarter, the Mavs gave up 26 points in the second, 23 points in the third, and 21 in the fourth. So if you do that, you give yourself a chance to win. You just can't give up 37 points. One of the things Rick Carlisle used to say when he was coach of the Mavs is that it's a first quarter league. And, the percentages, the numbers typically back that up. Whoever jumps out to, big leads in the first quarter, they typically end up winning the game. So the Mavs have to come out with some more fire. And if recent history is any indicator, I don't see how that doesn't happen in game 2. So I hope it happens in game 2 because, like I said, I'm flying out to Boston Saturday, and I will be there being booed by all the Celtics fans around me in the crowd. Uh, so we'll see how it goes. I hope the Mavs bounce back. I think they're capable. And again, if they can get the split, they say a series doesn't officially start until the road team wins. Well, let's hope this NBA Finals series starts officially on Sunday. One other quick point I want to make. We're not going to stay on here too long because all 200 people that are going to actually listen to this loss. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I don't blame people. People don't. They're not like itching to go listen to post game pods after their team loses. I get it, but one more thing I wanted to talk about is so out of all the things, the outcomes that we thought we might see in game 1. One thing I did not have on my bingo card, DJ, was Jaden Hardy outscoring Kyrie Irving. And that happened.
That's sign. That's never good. It's never good.
But I mean, look, you gotta hand it to Jaden Hardy. He makes the absolute most of his minutes. He is, we talk about it. He's a little hectic at times. Sometimes he can be a little out of control. But in 11 minutes off the bench, he had 13 points, and Kyrie Irving had 12 points in 37 minutes. So, if I'm Kyrie, I'm looking at that and taking that as like a personal challenge going into game 2. Like, this cannot happen again. So we'll see how it goes. I haven't looked at what do you think about the big situation specific? Like, what do you think? How do I want to phrase this? How can the Mavs keep up with Boston's 5-out offense when, if Gafford and Lively are going to end up being such big negatives in the box score? Like, how do they avoid that problem? Because, you look at it, and there were times tonight where Kidd went to Kleba at the 5. He was like, okay, well, these guys are getting, abused a little bit. We're going to just go small and try to match their 5-out and go with Kleba at the 5. And that didn't work either. Kleba didn't even have a rebound in this game. He had 0 rebounds, 2 points. He did have a block. I mean, that's it. He was a negative 15. Lively was a negative 15. Gafford was a negative 10. I mean, what is the Mavs' answer here? Do they go smaller? Is this the moment where Jason Kidd is going to have to play PJ Washington at the 5 and throw Dante Exum in there for more minutes? Like, what's the answer here?
I don't hate the small ball proposition simply because a lot of their offensive rebounds already come from long rebounds.
Yeah, they're getting them anyway. So, I mean, why not?
It's not even the post players that are getting them. It's the guards. Like, our guards have to do a better job of boxing out. But I have another interesting proposition, and I think I might like this one better because I'm all about rim protection, even in the face of 3-point shooting, just because I don't like leaving the rim or the middle of the floor open. We need to identify at all times, depending on whatever lineup they have on the floor, we need to identify their worst shooter on the floor. And that is who Derek Lively's responsibility is. That way we can potentially, they always have 5 people on the floor usually who can shoot the ball decently, but there's always going to be a weak-ish link. That if you have to have Lively on the floor, which I still am a firm believer that Lively makes us better. Because if you don't have Lively or Gafford on the floor, you ain't got the pick and roll anymore. And if you don't have the pick and roll anymore, then that's a large part of our offense right out the window. And I'm just not willing to give that up. So what if we identify whoever their worst shooter is on the floor at the time, and that is who we stick our post player on, whether that be Gafford or Lively, because we need them on the floor for offense. We just do. And what you can do with that is you can sag your post player back a little bit and kind of play it like a zone. Now, he will still need to come out and contest if it is convenient, but at the same time, if his guy is way over here and he is helping off on a drive, we're going to have to scramble, and that's going to be on the perimeter defenders at that time. But we have to have a post presence on offense. Otherwise, it's going to throw – we're going to be playing their game, and that's a surefire way to lose, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'm trying to rationalize. I'm trying to look and see, if the Mavs ran that lineup that I was talking about in the previous pod, the one that had such great success over the first, or in the first round series against the Clippers, and then in that Game 5 win against the Timberwolves, where it was Luka, Kyrie, Derek Jones Jr., Maxi Kleba at the 4, and Lively at the 5. And I'm looking through the lineup data for Game 1, and I thought my eyes were correct watching the game, but I don't think they ran that lineup once in Game 1.
Hell, Dalton, maybe they don't know what we know.
I think that needs to be something that changes.
Yeah.
going into Game 2. But look, here was out of the most minutes played together. So the starting lineup: Kyrie, Luka, Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Gafford. Not terrible. I mean, they had a 109.5 offensive rating and a 104.8 defensive rating. So a 4.8 net rating in 11 minutes. Not terrible. Now, when it's crazy because that same exact lineup, you take Gafford out and you put Lively in there in a 7-minute sample size with the same exact starting lineup, but you put Lively in there. Their offensive rating was 106.7 and their defensive rating was 133.3. That's rough. That's
awful.
That's really bad.
Yeah, that's really bad.
And it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't just Lively either. You take out Lively, and Kid tried to throw Kleba in there. Well, then the offense fell off completely. They had
it's because they don't have anyone to run pick and roll with. I mean, that's the big thing.
And he can't shoot either because of the shoulder that he's hesitant and he's not going to shoot. So the same starting lineup, but you take Gafford and Lively out and you put Maxi Kleba in there at the 5. They had a 90 offensive rating and 120 defensive rating. So it was awful. It was absolutely awful. So we'll see. The best lineups for the Mavs in this game, this is all very limited data, but the best thing was the starting lineup because they had almost a 5-point net rating, and then the other one was Luka, Kyrie, PJ Washington, Kleba, and Lively. Okay, so see, that's close. That's not the exact lineup that was outrageous. Had a 50 net rating in 17-minute sample size from the Clipper series and then part of the Wolves series, but that's going in the right direction. That lineup had 100 offensive rating and an 83.3 defensive rating. So good things happen typically when Kleba's at the 4 and Lively's at the 5. And then, if PJ Washington can play like he did in Game 1, especially in the second half, because I thought he really I thought he really seized the moment, with Derek White on him. I think he exploited that a little bit. I think that's something we need to watch going forward too.
That's a mismatch we can exploit,
Yeah,
honestly.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's something we need to look forward or look at going forward. And then you could tell the Celtics at times they were trying to get Tatum and Brown a rest from guarding Luka by putting Drew Holiday or White or anytime those and that we kind of figured if that ended up happening, Luka was going to have a little bit easier time scoring, and I feel like that's what happened. I feel like when Luka wasn't doing his best in game one, it was typically because Brown was just hounding him. At least the I think I feel like that's what my eyes were telling me. I haven't gone back and rewatched it, and I probably won't, to be honest with you, because that was just such a deflate. I may fast forward to the middle of the second quarter and watch until the middle of the third quarter, but other than that, I don't know how much I'm going to rehash all this stuff. But I overall, again, I think the Mavs are okay. Losing one game, it doesn't matter if you lose by 1 point or 18 points or whatever it is. A loss is a loss, and now they got to come back and try to win game two. And I think they can. I mean, I don't expect a team with Luka and Kyrie to have the same poor shooting nights that they did in this one, and I don't expect this Mavs team to only score 89 points in game two as well. So, uh, and if it does happen, and if KP comes back and he has another 18-point first half, and the Mavs can't hit threes, then again you'll just have to tip your hat to the Celtics and say congrats, because they're defeating the odds there with the numbers. So
Yeah.
we'll just have to see. But any closing thoughts before we take off here, DJ?
I don't want to say the next game is a must win, but it's about as close to being a must win as you can get without it being a must win. We really, really need to steal one of these home games before we head back to Dallas, because the longer this series goes on, the more difficult it's going to be to steal a game at Boston, in my opinion. So we need to try and take one of these early ones. And I think we're fully capable of doing that. For me, the biggest issue that I saw was our inability to share the ball and our inability to run anything good offensively, and our issues with just settling offensively.
Well, and it's because they can switch everything. That's the
Can.
problem.
But the thing is, you need to understand whenever you're calling for a screen or whatever, you need to understand who is going to be switched on to who and then take advantage of those mismatches. There were several instances where we could have gotten a screen and roll of some sort, and they would have switched KP onto Luka, and that's cash every single time. Or if they switch KP onto Kyrie, that could be cash every single time. Like, we have to create our mismatches. That's the beauty of switches. Also, if they switch like that, you can slip screens and get easy lanes to the basket all day long.
Luka and Kyrie have to be more forceful, getting into the paint in game two, because that's one thing that led to wide open threes for the Celtics. Is I think Tatum did it too, but mainly Jaylen Brown and his aggressiveness. He was getting into the paint, and even if he didn't score himself, it collapsed the Mavs defense. And even if it wasn't the first pass out to the 3-point line, you're playing a numbers game at that point. So then they swing it to the next guy who's wide open and ends up hitting a three. So that's what the Mavs need to do. That's what Luka and Kyrie, they have to put their heads down, get into the lane, draw a second defender, and then make the correct pass off of that, and see if the role players can hit their open threes in game two. Because look, I mean, the rebounding battle wasn't. I mean, it was pretty even. The Celtics won it 47-43, but offensive rebounds were tied at 10 apiece. That wasn't terrible.
So many to give up, though, man. That is so many to give up.
It really is on both sides. And then points in the paint, the Mavs controlled that like they have most of these playoffs, 46-38. this really just came down to 3-point shooting. If you, that's the most simple explanation for what happened in game one, because the Celtics hit 16 threes, the Mavs hit 7. That is a 27-point difference in 3-point shooting alone. That is, and the Mavs lost by 18. So,
Yep.
that's your ball game. That's your ball game. And the Celtics also attempted 15 more threes than the Mavs did. So we'll see. We've given Jason Kidd his flowers this postseason because, he's, even when the team takes a loss like this, him and his staff are pretty good at going back and making the proper adjustments and making sure the guys, don't get too down on themselves. I don't think this is what, I think they'll go back and realize, like, hey, the Celtics hit literally, they hit 9 more threes than we did. That's 27 more points. Kyrie shot 6 of 19 overall. PJ Washington didn't hit a 3. Luka he missed 8 threes himself. There's a lot of things you can point to in this game and say, like, hey, the Mavs could have a little bit better chance to win in Boston than what we think. So we'll see how it goes. We have a little bit extra time to digest this, unfortunately, until game 2 happens on Sunday night. But again, DallasBasketball.com, Mavs step back. We're going to be in the building. So we'll try to bring the Mavs a little bit of good luck, going into game 2, and hopefully it ends up being a big bounce back win and a tied series heading back to Dallas. So, guys, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming in and listening to us ramble for a little bit. As always, be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. You're already here watching, so you might as well go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We greatly appreciate it. Also, go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Put your social media ad that interests you for a chance to win future giveaways. Obviously, we're not going to be doing any ticket giveaways anytime soon because NBA Finals tickets are higher than draft, and but we'll still give out some T-shirts every now and then too. So and then once the next season rolls around, we might do some tickets again. But guys, we appreciate it, y'all. Look, try not to get too down about this loss. I know every loss in the playoffs feels like life and death. But that's just the emotions that, every game is its own animal. So, the Mavs aren't out of this. My prediction was Mavs in 6. And like I said, to get to Mavs in 6, the Mavs have to lose 2 games. So they've lost 1 now. We move on to game 2. We'll see y'all next time.